Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Linwood Esquire. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you? I know you're mad at me, but you know, it is what it is.
Say again, say again.
I know you're mad with me, Patrick, but it is what it is. I only
Lynn,
spoke the truth.
but it's okay. I'm not in the least mad at you, Lynn. I'm not in the least mad at you. I wanted to call you today, literally. I don't know what, but I just wanted to, I've thought of you so fondly all year. I don't know if you've seen how much I quote you and how I defend you and stuff, and softly, but I'm not in the least mad at you, Lynn. I think that you're a little kooky, and it seems you're...
Now, hold on a second, Patrick. Kooky
Sure.
is a word that would fit you. Don't insult me. It doesn't fit me. You call to talk to me or you call to insult me? Make up your mind and we can talk if you want to talk.
What was the first choice?
Talk to me. Don't insult me. When somebody tells me I'm kooky and I know I'm not, the person that says it is the kooky one. Now let's talk about what you want to talk about.
It can also be said with affection. It can be a nice way of saying to somebody, hey, I'm affection for you, but let's talk.
We don't know each other, Pat. You don't have any affection for me. What do you want to talk about?
Well, one thing I wanted to do was talk about out of my affection for you. I wanted to call and tell you something.
Okay.
I saw something that you said about when Kyle accused you of this, which I immediately told people this is total bullshit on television. Flynn sent me you recorded some journalist who called you to ask about it, and we did a nice job tearing it up. And Flynn sent me that. I didn't know anything about these accusations. There's some guy named David Hancock is his name.
Oh yeah, old Dave Fraudcock Hancock.
Was he one of the SEALs who was down there with you when I was there?
He had already been thrown off my property before you came here.
Okay, I wanted to tell you, do you still have the SEALs protecting you?
No, I've got some very good people, but they're not SEALs.
Good for you. What I've been wanting to call and tell you, and I even kind of wanted to tell you then, but I didn't feel I won't know you well enough. That's a real problematic community, and you should not have it with you. And that's why I was looking for your number today, to call you and say, keep all the SEALs away from you. They're reporting back. I knew that some of the people there were very dodgy. And we're glad to be here. So I was just trying to reach you today to give you a warning. I had no idea that any of this other stuff was going on. I would like to know.
I quit doing business with the Navy SEALs when I got rid of the Hancock group.
No, there was a guy, one or two there when I was at Motley.
Well, I got rid of the Hancock group after you were here, but Hancock was gone at the end of October.
Oh.
And then there were a couple that stayed behind, but I figured them out and documented what they were doing, and I got rid of them too.
We knew.
I'm not someone to be played. I might get played for a little while, but God gave me the ability usually to figure it out soon, in time, let's say.
Well, good for you. And over the course of December, January, I learned a lot more about some things going on there. And I always wondered what in that community.
Oh yeah, the SEALs community. I mean, they got the good SEALs and the bad SEALs. Kind of like in everything. Kind of like in the audit. There's good audit people, there's bad audit people.
Tell me about that. What are your thoughts
about the audit?
Am I a good audit person or a bad audit person?
Patrick, I haven't kept up with you.
Well,
I saw you wrote a book. I saw you made a movie. I didn't read the book. I didn't watch the movie. I know that you're involved with Mike. I know there's an involvement with Sydney. I know y'all are in defendtherepublic.org. I know that you have the America Project. I'm not sure where all this money's going, but I think somebody owes to the American public a full accounting. You asked me about Kyle. Fight Back was fully audited independently in 2020, which was the only year. Let me finish now. You raised the question. The only year that we raised money for Kyle. You want me to finish what I'm saying? 2020 was the year we raised money for Kyle from September to November. We have had a full audit by an outside independent auditing firm, CPA. Our books are pristine. Now, why don't you do the same thing? Everybody's owed the truth of what all this money's going to and where it's being spent. If everything's fine, like it was with Fight Back, when the false accusations are made, like they've been made against Fight Back, you have the ability to answer them and then sue the hell out of anybody that's made those false statements. Watch out for what's going to happen soon.
Well, thank you for your legal advice. I've never bothered. I mean, at some point, of course, there's clearly a lot you don't know.
I don't know. So, tell me what I don't know. Well, tell me what I need to know. I know there's a lot of things I don't know. I don't know if the earth is flat or round. I think it's round, but I don't need to know it. What do I need to know, Patrick? Just tell me.
I'll tell you real quick. On March 5th, both Sydney and Mike asked me to move down to Florida and stand up defending the Republic. I said no. And they said, oh, it's all going to fall apart. We're going to need you to do this. Sydney was moving to Florida. You have to do this. I said, I'll come down for 4 months and get it stood up. And then I'm going to turn the keys over to you. I came down. I lasted 11 days with Sydney. I'm not going to go into the details, but there was one day, 11 work days, 15, when I came down on March 12th, 1 week later, and I can tell you on April 3rd, I think, Mike Flynn, Joe Flynn, Patrick Byrne, and the other 5 people that I had hired and built an office around all walked out the door on Sydney and had never spoken a word to her since. Now, you can infer what you want from that, but by lumping with me Sydney, it tells me that I haven't spoken a word to Sydney since April 6th, and I never will again. And
is defendingtherepublic.org under federal investigation?
I walked out. We all resigned on April 6th. We walked out the door. I gave her a laundry list of things she had to clean up and told her she had to get an auditor and showed this and everything. She refused to let me look at any. Well, I can't tell you anymore. But I left her. We walked out after 17 days there, and I had hired about 5 people, and we had Mike and Joe, and we all walked out on the same day. And you can infer what you want from that. But you're a smart man. You can probably guess. And so I've been.
I try not to guess. I try to take facts and connect logical conclusions from them. But listen, I do know that Sydney has told me that there was a falling out with you and Mike over money. She claimed, and this is just very general from my recollection, some amount of money in the millions that apparently she felt y'all were supposed to pay but didn't pay, and she had to pay. I didn't get involved in it. Wasn't my business.
Okay.
I told her, and I've got text where I told her that I thought it would be good for the Patriot movement if she reconciled her differences with Mike. I document what I do. I'm a lawyer, 45 years. I didn't fall off the truck yesterday, Patrick.
Just so you know, that's all a complete fabrication. There was anything about money. I have texts where Sydney, some of it has to do with Sydney was trying to bed me, and I said no. And we have texts and witnesses to that. And then she became a woman scorned. And that's what her animosity towards me is all about. Was zero question of anything to do with money, anything to do with Mike and her and money. That's all a lie. It's all a fabrication. It's completely false. Has no bearing to anything in reality.
Well, let me tell you this. There's one thing I do know about, and that is a woman scorned. I've had 4 divorces. It's not good. If Sydney wanted to bed you down and you turned her down, I don't know Sydney. I only know her from a professional standpoint, but that's really neither here nor there to me.
Well, she was incredible. If you've ever seen the movie The Devil Wears Prada, working with her was that movie squared. And everyone walked out the door. And yes, there were, in fact, just at the point, I don't want to tell too much, but I can tell you that within a day or two of being there, I said, I need to get my hands on the money. And she started telling me, well, there's one account with $1 million in it. You manage that. And I said, no, I need to audit. We need to build accounting around everything. And she said, you can audit that one bank account. And I said, that's not how it works, Sydney. When I sign things to the IRS and the federal government, I got to sign for every dollar that came in, not just one little bank account that you created for me. I need visibility to the whole money. And then I got a CFO, a CFO to come in. And she said no to me. I said, well, I said to myself, once she has a CFO, he'll make her understand. You can't just say, we have a CFO. And after 10 days, he said to her, we need an audit, and she blew her top. And I said, no, we need an audit. We need to audit soup to nuts every dollar that came into this business. You won't believe how much money I heard came in. We never saw like over $800,000 of it.
She told me when she was here, she was getting her foundation legally finalized, and she told me she had $7 million, and I went, what? I said, man, how did you get that much money? I said, Fightback just struggles along. And she said, well, I've got to finish up doing some things technically on the legal aspect, and then I can start paying myself back my fees. And candidly, Patrick, that bothered me. I didn't know Sydney had made the public into a client, which I don't think should be done. I don't do that.
Right.
Because that opens the door to self-dealing. But that's all I know about it. Except I've heard that there's a federal investigation. I could be getting bad information, but I don't think so. I think she's already gotten, some people have gotten subpoenas for documents.
I believe there is. I wouldn't be surprised if there is one in part, because I made a couple comments in the place they needed to make. By the way, it's not $7 million.
That's what she told me. She wasn't talking about y'all. It was just, she said her foundation, defendtherepublic.org, had $7 million. She asked me to be on the filing papers, At the time, I said, it's a favor to do it. And then I wanted it off. And so she quickly turned around and got me out of it. Sydney signed my name to certain lawsuits without my knowledge or permission.
Yeah.
And she hasn't been honest about that. And it's gotten me in a lot of unnecessary entanglements with bar grievance committees. I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
Because I think I was set up by Sidney Powell. Do you hear me?
Well, since we're on the same side of this, Lynn, I'll tell you, that's why we walked out the door. The day I found out it wasn't, when I started finding out, she had told me when I came down there was $15 million. And so you won't have to worry about any money, Patrick. There's $15 million in the bank.
You're talking about the day you came down to Tomotley?
No, the day I came down to take over defending the Republic. And
that was March of 21.
March of 21. And she told me there's $15 million in the bank. You won't have any problem. But, well, I got here. There's an account with $500,000 in it, and the rest of the money is back in Texas. And that's where I was saying, well, we're going to have to go back and get all that money and get it. And some of it had come into her personally and her law firm and this and that. There wasn't any DTR bank account. But I said, well, we're going to have to, we got to account for every penny of that. I don't care where it came in. But of course, we've got to scrape all that together and pull it together and account that all the dollars that came in were together for Sydney. And that's what she said no to. And then I got a CFO. And after 10 days, the CFO and I went and explained it to her. And she said no. And I thought that she was just innocent and didn't understand. But then I found out it wasn't $15 million. It was at least $20 million. It might be $30 million.
Good.
And that's when I realized.
Where did she tell you that money was coming from?
We know that since she went on Rush or something and talked about, my understanding is that this all started on Rush. And she said, I'm on this thing called Defending the Republic. And people started sending her like postcards with a dollar taped to it or a quarter taped to it and letters and everything, $5, $10, checks. But those were all sent to, like some were just Sidney Powell, Dallas, Texas. Some were the Sidney Powell law firm. Some were the Sidney Powell home.
If somebody sent me $30 million collectively, I'd want to make damn sure I knew exactly where it came from.
Well, she just, as far as we can tell, and then she got a bank account set up for DTR, and $15 million ended up in that. But some unknown number. I've heard numbers as high as $70 million. I've heard numbers I don't understand. I've heard.
I don't think Rush Limbaugh had that many viewers.
I've heard more recently. I don't give any credibility to that number. But when I started hearing that she didn't think she was going to show us the other $15 million, and B, it might be $20 million or $30 million. And I know it was at least $20 million because we finally had access to one form, a bank processing form. Part of it, when the pledge to Brenda Maricopa, she got to, after we all left and she took control, she wouldn't send a dollar. We had sent $500,000. She never sent the next $1.5 million. She buys a few billboards. She defends the law. It shouldn't be called defending the Republic. It should be called defending the Sidney Powell. All she wanted to do was focus on, with Howard Finkelbaum, or whatever his name is, defending Sidney Powell's law cases. Had nothing to do with doing anything out in the world. That actually, not the stuff that we're doing. Driving audits, driving investigations. She wouldn't spend one penny on anything. It was all just, the only thing she'll spend a penny on is anything that involves defending the lawsuits or the bar actions against her. So it's to me, it sounds like a big charade that she's doing as little as she can out there in the world to help our cause. But on that basis, raising the most money she can. By the way, it's a for-profit. It's not defending the Republic turns out to be for-profit. And they're paying themselves stock options. They've arranged themselves stock options.
Well, who's themselves? Who are themselves? Who's in it?
Well,
is Howard you said Howard?
Yes.
What's his last name?
It's a Jewish last name. He was on he's the constitutional guy who was on her team. He was part of some of the filings. He's the guy who filed. By the way, it turns out Sidney filed some of those things there's filings that were so bad that she put your name on. She didn't even read the filing. Howard wrote them, and they were terribly done. And Howard's also the guy this spring who made the filing in her defense on her libel action, where he basically filed, and then it was this very damaging sentence that's like, well, I'm Sidney Powell, no one should have taken me what I said seriously anyway. It was a terribly constructed. Remember how they roasted her back in like March? Yeah,
I think she said something about nobody would expect it to be true. And it was a poorly worded phrase. I remember looking at it, that she was saying that she was expressing her legal opinion based on facts, but it was the opinion that she was referring to. It was poorly worded. I didn't have anything to do with it. I just saw it in the media.
Yeah, it was. I know that every libel litigation, that's one of the defenses that you're saying. You have a whole bunch of different defenses, and that's one, especially for a lawyer. But it was worded particularly badly, and that was Howard. And here's another thing to know about Howard. Howard, until October of 2020, Howard was Hillary Clinton's attorney.
What?
Howard worked for Hillary Clinton.
Until when?
What?
Until when?
Like very recently, before this election, he claims to have switched sides. We caught him going around snapping pictures inside the place of people's papers and they're on people's desks. So at Sydney's instructions, I got a little bank building,
Excuse me.
We caught him sneaking around taking pictures of things on people's desks. We think he's working to the other side. And he filed the responsive pleading to the libel argument where he had that terrible sentence that was used to excoriate and mock Sydney. And he also is the guy who wrote those terrible complaints that Sydney didn't even really read, but that she signed her name to. But I've learned from other lawyers who were involved that Sydney did not even, the ones that had all these typos and mistakes and those pleadings, that she had not even read them according to other people who were on her staff. And they got filed, and that's what she signed her name to. Just FYI.
Yeah, and I'm the one that got blamed for it, and I didn't even know my name was on the things.
So if the feds are investigating me, Sydney, it was all I could do not to drop a dime on her. I thought it the right thing to do, but I did make it known in the right places. But I mean, I didn't have knowledge, and I consulted a lawyer because did I have knowledge or what? But I sure walked out the door. Within a week of leaving, more facts had come in that made me think, holy shit, Sydney's just running this as a scam. She's raising this money. It's secretly for profit, and there's nothing. And she gave herself stock options. Have you ever heard somebody do one of these things and give themselves stock options?
I've never heard of. It's not anything I've ever been involved in, so I don't know anything about it.
No,
so I wouldn't be able to comment whether it's right or wrong, but the overall picture that you're painting is pretty bleak.
It's really bleak. Yeah. So I walked out the door. I won't have anything to do with it. And to be honest, Lynn, you're the first person other than Mike and Joe that I've talked to this way, because I haven't said anything. Meanwhile, I know she's out in the world. She also twice got drunk and really very directly tried to get me to bed in front of other people. And she got really hurt, and she wrote me love letters and this kind of nonsense about how hurt she was and stuff. And then when it all snapped and we walked out the door, she became super vindictive. And all she's done is go around for 6 months and raise and make up stuff about me and Flynn.
She was here for that period of time, and she came back for a brief few days. I didn't even know Sydney drank. I didn't see her drinking when she was here.
Around you guys, that's a whole big act. This whole evangelical thing, that's just for your crowd.
Well, she told me she loved Jesus.
Well, that may all be. She plays it up when she's around your crowd. When she's not around your crowd, it's a woman.
I got you. Wolf in sheep's clothing.
I'm not saying that. I just think she's not. Well, all people. She's actually what I started thinking, Lynn, was when she was acting so batty. She was acting like a menopausal woman, but she's too old for that. But sometimes I'm sure you've been around women of a certain age that they act batty, and you think, I'm not going to argue with this person. I just want some distance. I'll give you an example. Her whole problem in Florida. So she opens these things like Defend the Republic in Texas, and then we sort of to compartmentalize off everything that happened. So she got it organized in Florida, or formed it, and sort of a few weeks later got a letter from the Secretary of Agriculture of Florida, and for some reason, solicitation licenses are made, which is a very powerful position here. And there's some lefty woman, perfectly polite, and it says, I know that you've not yet registered under the license to solicit money. Please do so. If you pay $1,500 to make up for the past and do so, we'll just drop this and go forward. Well, in my book, you say yes.
Hold on one second, Patrick. I gotta let my dogs out there. Hang on one second. Come on, puppies. Come on. Come on, puppies. Come on. Get these two, Morgan. sorry, Patrick. Dog patrol.
No, I understand.
Okay, I'm back. Just another day in dog paradise.
Well, you did have dog paradise. I thought very fondly for the end of our couple days together, and I thought you were terrific.
It was a pleasure to meet you. I had never met you before. We spoke the first night you got here. I asked Sydney what your role was, and she said, well, Patrick just provided the jet plane for Mike and them. And then you left, and so I assumed you were being a very gracious taxi driver, so to speak.
There's more to it, but Sydney never understood the whole thing. So I wanted to ask you, though, are you, I'm back on Sydney. I thought that she was losing her mind. We got that letter where the woman offered for $1,500. Hey, I see that you broke the rules here. Just pay me $1,500. Set up your license. Go for it. We'll call it quits. To me, the answer to that is yes, ma'am. I won't let it happen again. Sydney. No way, you're Sidney Powell. I've been named one of the top 5 lawyers in the world. I'm not going to admit to making a mistake. No, we're going to fight this, blah, blah, blah. Well, because she did that little thing blew up into this whole investigation. Now, I haven't even heard about it for 3 months, but the last I heard 3 months ago, there were a bunch of people starting to look very hard at her. And that could have all been averted if she'd sent a check for $1,500. So that's the kind of decision-making she was doing a lot that made me think, this chick's going crazy. She's as pleasant to work around as the Meryl Streep character in The Devil Wears Prada. And then when she finally said no, when you don't get to look into all the money that's come in, you only get to look at this $800,000 that I've sent to a bank in Naples, Florida for you to operate out of, is when we all said, we want to get as far away from this as we can. And I think it's perfect. I almost... based on that set of facts, I did not have enough reason that I felt an obligation to call the authorities. But a week later, I learned something, that it wasn't $15 million, it was at least $20, maybe $30 million. And even so anyway, I think but what she's done for the last 6 months, I've never spoken this way about her. You're the first person, other than the Flynns and I, talk about this. But she spent 6 months trying to get everyone in the evangelical community to cut me out. I won't appear with Patrick Byrne. She made up, I heard that I poisoned her. I heard that I drugged and date raped her. I've heard crazy stuff. And she's just, that's it. That's all I can say. I literally have heard so she gets with people and starts rumors. One is that I poisoned her. And another is that I drugged her and date raped her. It's the crazy, what can you say? So
I'm flabbergasted. I've never heard anything like this. I didn't know Sydney before she came here. I thought she and Mike were coming down here to work on finding evidence to support her lawsuits. I didn't really know what the people were doing. I knew she was doing drafting of lawsuits, but, I just was trying to be hospitable. I thought it was the patriotic thing to do. I had the property, and I was never really sure. When she got here on a Friday, she said, Mike's coming on Sunday. And I said, Mike Flynn? And she said, yeah, I'd never met him before. And he came, and I said, how long is he going to stay? And she said, I don't know. And then, of course, they stayed several weeks. But, I had the property. I had the size. I didn't mind them working. I tried to be nice to them. I helped a little bit if I could. Doug Logan helped me look into a computer that I was trying to get into our Fight Back domain, and we couldn't. This guy Hancock, we found out. Well, Doug said somebody had hacked it. I took it to an independent company, and they found that Hancock had hacked it, and we later found that he had stolen our donor list. So, all of this stuff is kind of rolled out on me over time in terms of having concerns about Sydney and some, candidly, concerns about Mike. And Patrick, I've reached out to them to talk, and Sydney doesn't, she's promised to call me. She never does. Mike doesn't call me. I've asked him to talk to me. I did not like the Vernon Jones endorsement. I know who Vernon Jones is. I thought he was inconsistent with Mike's character, as I understood it, and I raised that with him. I was very disturbed about the prayer that he gave out with Hank Kuhneman from a faith standpoint, and there were some other things that I started to learn that it just set off alarms.
The prayer being the one where Mike said the legions.
Yeah, I think the 7 rays of light and the legions. He said it was a Catholic prayer, and it's not. He lied about it. And then he told me he told me he did not have any affiliation with Pegasus, and that's a blatant lie.
Pegasus.
Yeah. Pegasus is a company that I think Apple just sued him, involved in spyware and phones. And I asked Mike about it when he was telling me, we're in different circumstances, because Mike charges a lot of money to speak. I don't like that, but that's his personal right. I don't think as a patriot.
Money to spook?
I'm sorry?
Mike charges money to spook?
To speak.
Oh.
I've heard $25,000 to $50,000 a speech. I don't mind anybody making money, but when you're fighting for your country, usually you sacrifice. But that's his choice. But I thought he should disclose it to the people that were coming to these meetings so they would know what the speakers were being paid.
I do too.
And I raised that with Mike. He never really talked to me about it other than say, well, we have different circumstances. And I said, well, all my money's in land. I can't take a handful of soil to the grocery store, but I'm okay. And I said, I know you went through a rough time for a few years, and, I know that costs a lot of money. And then I said, well, you made $1 million or something from Pegasus in 2016. He said, you know what I was talking about? It's fake news. That's not true, Patrick. Why would Mike lie to me?
I don't know anything about it. I don't know. But I've never had anything but super honorable in my dealings with him.
Well, then Joe Flynn connected me with a guy named Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson was all hot and bothered about me publishing the whistleblower's transcript. And I read him in a heartbeat as being a CIA or a deep state operative, and it turned out I was right. Well, how did Joe Flynn know him? And then Tracy Beans was one of the people that wanted me to run for chair of the South Carolina Republican Party, and she had a big function. And I went down and asked her if we could sell Win with Lynn t-shirts. She said no. And then she got on the stage and she spoke. She didn't mention my name. Mike got on the stage and he spoke, and he didn't mention my name. Now, I wasn't hurt about it. It just struck me as odd that someone was running for chair of a county that would not have anything to say about the person that she had urged to run for chairman. And Mike had, by that time, I think, endorsed me. She called me when I was on the way home and told me that people at the function were very angry because they wanted to hear me speak, and I didn't. I said, well, you didn't ask me. I don't take this stuff personally, but there's just a series of things. People that write for some of Tracy's stuff have been very attacking of me. Brian Cates. I don't see Mike ever defending me. And when Vernon Jones said that I was un-American, had made my money illegally, and was a racist, all of those things are false. There's not one shred of evidence to support them, which tells me Vernon Jones is the person that's un-American, made his money illegally, and is a racist. I raised that twice with Mike. Mike never responded. He never called Vernon Jones out about that. So it just bothered me. Something's not right now with Mike Flynn. I don't know what it is. I've tried to talk to him. I know there was involvement. Joe Flynn was the person that hooked me up with Ricky Schroeder, who loaned $150,000 to Fight Back sometime around November the 18th or 19th of 20, that pushed us to the $2 million to get Kyle out. I raised the money as quickly as I could. And then when I am falsely maligned all over the country, if not world, by saying that I left the boy in jail so that I could grift off of him, that's such a blatant lie. Mike Flynn knows better than that, but he did not come out and say a word in my defense. What in the world is going on with Mike?
Wait a second. The only time I've heard that claim was the other night on CNN, or not CNN, Tucker. Kyle made a point in a way that told me he'd been coached. I'm sure you've seen it now. He made a point to veer in his interview over and make this point that Linwood left me in, but almost like he'd been coached to do it.
Oh, listen, he had to be coached because it's a lie. Once we raised the money, John Pierce, who at the time was representing him as the criminal lawyer, I never was. I was had signed on to help him with defamation after the criminal case. He told us to stand down right after we made the bail, that they were going to do their own fundraising, so Fight Back stood down. We took everything off our website. He said he was going to handle the defamation cases. I said, here's a letter of withdrawal, and I wished him luck. And then all of a sudden, I understand Dave Hancock got involved. Well, that's a dot that's interesting because Hancock was here right before Mike was here. But Mike was here in November. I'm sure I talked to him at times that I was busting my butt to try to help Kyle. And Mike Flynn sat silently. But Mike Flynn's written me all these nice notes telling me how he'd go to war with me and take a bullet in a firing squad with me. And then when Vernon Jones came after me, and then Kyle Rittenhouse came after me, old Mike Flynn got out of the foxhole and ran. Something's not right with Mike, Patrick.
Well,
and I tried to talk to him about it. He won't talk.
You mean in the last week you've tried to talk to him?
I have raised this by text messages over a course of weeks or longer, months.
How long has Kyle Rittenhouse been saying this bad stuff about you?
He got out, the verdict was, I think, Friday a week ago. And
Yeah,
he got out, the verdict was around noon, and then they were promoting an interview with him that night where he must have done the interview right after the verdict. And then it went everywhere. All the Mockingbird media picked up on it. It's been a massive campaign, false smears against me. And here's my alleged foxhole buddy for the second time running. So I don't know. And then I connect the dot that Joe got Ricky Schroeder involved. And then I got information that you and Joe had wanted to approach the Rittenhouses after he got out on bail to raise $5 million for him through the America Project.
The name Kyle Rittenhouse has never came out of my lips until last
I've got
week.
a text message from Joe that says that not from you, but from him, that where he was trying to set up the meeting.
Well, I never
I don't
heard
say,
of that.
Patrick, I don't say something unless I have reasonable factual
Joe,
evidence to support it.
You were saying Joe Flynn was trying to set up a meeting on behalf of the America Project.
It doesn't say that in the text, but that's what I was told, that it was you and Joe that wanted to meet with Kyle to try to raise him $5 million after I had made his bail. Whether that meeting, I don't know that the meeting took place. I just know, and then there was a confirmatory text that Joe sent. Didn't mention you, didn't mention the American Project, but it was consistent with the information I'd been provided.
I've never heard a word about it or Kyle Rittenhouse in the context of the America Project.
I had the impression from your text today that maybe you had spoken with Kyle since the verdict.
I've not heard. I've never even. I paid zero attention to this. It was clear to me that it was self-defense from the day it happened, and I've paid zero attention for the year since. And a week ago, I tuned in on it and said, "Oh, great! It's going to be this guy's going to get off." Other than that, I've never talked about Kyle Rittenhouse with anyone. I don't think I've ever said the name until a week ago. Said the name aloud. So I don't know where any of this is coming from.
Well, listen, I don't discount the possibility that the information I got was inaccurate, but it was from a reliable source, and it was confirmed at least in part by a text message from Joe. So I just don't, Patrick, I don't just go out and say something. It took a lot for me to discuss Mike and Sydney. And your name was mentioned because of the information I had about the effort to talk to Kyle. I don't know anything about the America Project. I just know generally you have it. Like I said, I know you wrote a book. I know y'all did a movie. I don't know what else y'all are doing, but I just know this, Patrick, there's a lot of money in this audit movement and this whole movement to look into 2020 or to fix things going forward or whatever it is. There's a lot of people giving money. And so I'm looking over here going, maybe we ought to have an audit of everything and show people what they got and what they've done with it, which seems to me to be the right way to do it. That's what I did with Fight Back.
Fair enough, but just for your, the guy who runs the Maricopa audit, Doug Logan, did put out a statement about because there were a bunch of people, including Sydney, running around raising money for audits for Maricopa and claiming to be raising money for it. Fight Back
got Christina Bobbitt at OAN. She had a group called One Vote, One Something, and wanted me to go on and try to help her raise $150,000 for the Maricopa audit. Fight Back, the board voted to donate $50,000 because we support the audit. And then I put something on Telegram about it, and I think in a few days she had $150,000 or $60,000. So I knew there were people raising money. I don't know how much y'all paid. I think Mike told me that y'all put in like $5 million. I do have a text from him on that.
Say that again?
I have a text from Mike that said I believe you and he put in $5 million into Arizona.
That's correct. $1 million from his group and $4 million from our group.
The thing that bothered me is that Doug Logan was in my house with Mike Flynn. Mm-hmm. And then Doug Logan is the head of the audit. I thought Doug was a fine Christian boy. I didn't know his experience. I wasn't sure what he was doing with Mike. I do know he helped me one time to try to get into my computer and said, I think you've been hacked, and I had it turned over to independent investigators. And then Doug's cyber ninjas running the audit. I have heard from a reliable source involved with the audit that there were some very serious mistakes and omissions made by Doug with respect to the final audit report. That bothers me. It makes me almost think that the audit was a scam to get money, delay, and discourage people from investigating 2020. Have you ever heard that before? Has there been any concerns raised in your mind that somebody might be doing that?
close. And the same concern crossed my mind when their final report was tepid and watered down. However, having talked to the senators involved, the hardcore red meat senators, Borelli, Wendy Rogers, others, they tell me, because I was really curious, and I said, because Doug told me he'd been ordered to leave the word fraud out of the report and to make it as tepid as it was. And when I met with them, they said, no, we're the ones who made Doug do that because this is so devastating. We didn't want his report to be saying fraud. We want the Attorney General to say fraud. So his report, we instructed him to make it as bland and just fact as you can make it. The Attorney General has been begging the Senate, turn this over to me. I want to get criminal charges going. And they were holding the Attorney General off. Now, this is all directly from these senior senators in Arizona telling me this over lunch. They were holding the AG off so that they could, once the AG put his arms around it, then it could all get swallowed up and no one would know anything. So they said, let us finish our report. We'll get it to you. You take it from there. And that's what they did a few weeks ago or 6 weeks ago. And then the AG is all over his teeth, toes, and fingernails.
I heard there were some serious problems with corrupted files that allegedly had been in the possession of Doug Logan for months, and he allegedly didn't know they were corrupted, but they were key files because they were images, scanned images of the ballots or something like that. And the person that found out was shocked that Doug had not known that months earlier. So, listen, I don't know the details. What I do know is that there are concerns about how Doug handled the audit. Doug was in my house with Mike Flynn. I don't know what he was doing. And so I have concerns about what Jim Penrose. Do you know Jim?
I love Jim.
I thought Jim was a fine Christian man. I've had information now since in the last 2 or 3 weeks ago. Jim Penrose may not be who he purported himself to be. I know he was with NSA. That's all I knew. Maybe I made the mistake of letting everybody come down here and take advantage of my hospitality.
No, it was great. It was great that you did that, and it was super useful. But he sort of has a new conjecture accusation per week.
Who is this? Tell me. I'll tell you who is the person you think. Who?
It's Jovan. It's Jovan.
I've never spoken with Jovan. Unless I saw him somewhere and said hello. But I've had concerns that people have brought to me just out of the community that said Jovan is not a legitimate guy. I don't know.
Well, I've heard that too.
I don't know.
I don't know because he doesn't. He's just finally getting. We don't know either about Jovan. Jovan, nothing rests on Jovan. Jovan seems to go off in his own world and research technical details.
Well, who was monitoring the $5 million whatever dollars y'all put into the audit?
That was Doug, and in retrospect, this was way beyond Doug. Doug runs a little 6-man, hyper-exclusive cyber security firm. It turns out he's not up to managing a project like this. And how it came, the grassroots movement got in Arizona that I funded I bought them pizzas in the early meetings and things like this and helped them get organized. And they got going, that grassroots movement over January, February, March, got all this political pressure, got the Senate to understand the problem. And then these senators started digging, and that's what led to the audit. But when the audit came along, there was no one who would do the audit other than IBM or Doug. No one wanted, everyone was afraid for their life. So Doug, however, I would agree in retrospect, it looks like Doug was way overmatched for the job. Doug runs a little 6-man operation that goes in and looks at your computers. It turns out this was way beyond him running something like this. I would agree with that.
Well, listen, we're not going to be able to solve all those problems. I did not say anything about you that was not based on credible information. I did not say anything about you to cast any aspersions on you. I did say that I thought there ought to be an audit.
Okay. How about let's switch subjects? I'm fine with that. I'm sure all of our stuff gets audited. American Project is a 501c4 and all the audited. How about something else? Just so you know, I'll get to the bottom line up front. In the back of my mind for some months has been, is it going to be possible someday for me to hire Lynn as an attorney? Before I tell you why, is there anything that's happened that would prevent that from possibly, do you still have a bar license? I haven't followed your...
I still have a bar license. I'm obviously in the middle of trying to defeat the frivolous claims being brought against me by the Georgia bar. I still got an appeal in Delaware. I've got this ridiculous Michigan result where I did not even so much as breathe a breath in Michigan or even I didn't even know my name was on that complaint. So I've got to deal with that. But I was going to retire 2 years ago in Thanksgiving. I announced to my family I was going to retire, semi-retire, finish the salmon cases. And so while I still have my law license, I do not have a functioning law firm. And so I'm not really looking to get back into the practice of law. The court system is so corrupt right now that I think you don't have any idea what the rulings are going to be unless one side has something they want and they get it, because the rule of law is being ignored or distorted or changed ridiculously. My lawsuit filed in the Supreme Court of the United States was solid black letter law, but yet they didn't review it. Something's not right.
Something's not right.
So so I would say that I'm not in a position to. Is it possible down the road that I could give you some advice as a lawyer? Yes, but it's not something I'd be in a position to do now and might not be able to do in the future. So I would not wait around for me. I may be out of the game either. I think voluntarily, I don't think they're going to take my law license, because their complaints against me are as big a lies as Kyle Rittenhouse has been going around telling. There's a concerted effort that somebody's running to destroy my character and reputation. And I hope I do not find that Mike Flynn is involved in it.
I'm sure, Lynn, you're absolutely, well, if I couldn't imagine it, because of all the times I see him promoting you. Just today, he sent to the America Project this recording of you doing a wonderful job manhandling that reporter. And I thought, gee, what a gentleman. He's always doing, like, good stuff, like sending us your good stuff.
Well, when it came time to speak up publicly for me with Vernon, he didn't do it. And I didn't think what he said about Kyle was... let's just say I appreciated him republishing my statement, but I didn't see him weigh in on what he should have, is that I am a man of integrity. I stole some money off my father's desk drawer when I was a kid, because I liked to buy stuff at the school bookstore, and he left a bunch of change. I think he knew I was going to take some of it. But other than that, and I hope my father forgives me, he's passed away so he can hear me if he's in heaven. I've never cheated anybody out of a dime.
I know.
I never have worked for money. I've made money. God blessed me with some success, but I never put money ahead of my clients. And when these people came out and started viciously attacking me, telling me I'm insane, I think I'm God. Mike Flynn has been around me. Mike Flynn's the general. He says I'm his fellow patriot. He should have had his ass up raising hell about those statements made by this boy. And yet he stood quietly by, just like he did with Vernon Jones. What the heck's the deal with Vernon Jones?
Mike does have it. We've asked him not to do this. He runs around, and if some political candidate meets him and they sit and have coffee for 15 minutes and Mike likes them, Mike gives them an endorsement without doing real research, and he doesn't know. Sometimes there's 6 people in a race, and there might be 3 people who... So we keep telling him, Mike, don't endorse people. Just give a Flynn seal of approval. Like, maybe you're going to give the Flynn seal of approval to 3 people in a 7-man race.
I don't think anybody really cares right now about the Flynn seal of approval. I know this.
Why?
I know that some of the people that work closely with him have been part of the attack on me, like Doug Billings, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and some people in the media that I know worked under Mike, like Joe Posobiec, served under Mike. And I don't know what Mike's doing. I hope he's not doing what I'm afraid he might be doing, but I'm not making any accusations beyond the fact that Mike Flynn has had at least 2 occasions, if not 3, to stand up and speak the truth, and he has refused to do it. So I got some doubts about Mike's character now. I thought he hung the moon when I first met him. I was honored to have him in my house. Now I'm not sure I'd ever let him back in my house, Patrick.
Well, I'm sure he did not realize that you wanted him to do more than repost your...
No, that's just not true. I wrote him about Vernon Jones several times. I've got the text. I don't just pull stuff out of thin air.
How about, no, but I mean the stuff about Kyle. I'm sure he thought he was doing his duty as a friend just to repost whatever you said.
He didn't do anything as a friend. He didn't say anything he didn't put his own name on standing up for me. He resent a Daily Beast interview that I recorded and said, listen to the last sentence when I talked about Jesus. The problem is, the whole allegation was that I was some sort of a fraud that had stolen money from a young boy that was in trouble. Do you know how angry that makes me?
Of course.
And do you know how I feel about the people that claim to be my friends, that know it's false, and they don't stand up and fight for me? I wouldn't get in a foxhole with Mike Flynn. Now, I tell him before the battle, I ain't going to be in there for you, because I know if we went in the same foxhole, Mike, first time the shot was fired, you'd turn and run. You'd be hit in the back because you'd be a coward running. I'm not happy with Mike Flynn, and you can tell him I said that. if he's a hotshot general, he ought to come down here and sit down and talk to me. He can fly all over the country. He never offered to come and sit down and talk with me. And I told Joe. Old Joe called me yesterday. He was in a tizzy. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're going to hurt Mike? I said, I'm not hurting Mike. I'm telling people the truth. If the truth hurts, I'm sorry. I told him the same thing essentially I told you, what he did with me with Jones and what he did with me with Kyle. But that's not the problem. It's not about me. It's about the bigger issue of what is Mike doing. I know he's been planting questions to suggest that people to ask him if he's going to run for vice president. Is Flynn looking to run for president in 2024? Because it looks to me that Mike is not fighting to fix 2020, potentially run for office in 2024. That's not somebody I want to do business with, because I know the election was stolen. Mike knows it. And it's a communist effort to take over our presidency. And if we don't fix it, we're going to be lost. They use the Chad stuff to go into computer elections. And we cannot continue to vote in rigged elections. And there's Mike out there going that there was a red wave in Virginia. That's a lie. There was no red wave in Virginia. But Mike was suggesting we could vote our way out of a rigged election system. That's errant nonsense. Mike wanted everybody to look forward and stay in a rigged system when he should have been saying what everybody knew, that Youngkin, I know President Trump had to endorse him. He had to make a decision to go Republican over Democrat. But Youngkin was 20-some years as the CEO of Carlyle. Carlyle's owned by State Street. State Street owns Dominion.
Right.
Youngkin's a rhino Republican or a communist. I don't know, but he's not a patriot. And then you got Mike Flynn saying there's a red wave. That's not true. What's wrong with Mike?
So wait a second. There's a red wave in the sense that they got the governorship and the state legislature.
Listen, Patrick. You're putting party labels on things. That doesn't apply anymore. It's not what side you say you're on. Half of 75% of the Republicans are Democrats.
Right.
And Youngkin is not a patriot Republican. He said he's going to audit the vote. He ain't audited anything. I think he's a liar. I think he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And Mike Flynn ought to be smart enough to figure that out. I figured it out. I'm sure he's smarter than I am.
Negative. He's very negative on Youngkin now. He's very negative. He understands
what you need to do, Patrick, is just my personal friendship advice. From what you've told me about Sydney, you need to shine light on the darkness. You need to get out and tell people this.
No, I'm not going to go and badmouth her.
It's not a matter of badmouthing her. My God, you're talking about somebody that might be doing some bad things with people's money. You have an obligation to the public. Because if you don't talk about it publicly, it'll continue to be done in the dark. The problem will only get worse. It'll never get better.
The thing to do is perhaps talk to some authorities.
Well, listen, that's not I don't have firsthand knowledge to do that. But if you have the knowledge you've told me, if you came to me hypothetically and said, "What do?" I'd probably tell you, go to someone that's in the Department of Justice. Although I don't know who you trust there now, but I would rather be telling them that and let them decide what to do than to not tell them that. And then they might come back and say that somehow you were involved and you were covering it up. So, I mean, I'm not here to give you legal advice. I'm just giving you common sense advice. I wouldn't sit on this story if it's what you've told me is true. It's a bad story. It sounds very bad for Sidney Powell.
I hear you. Listen, on another subject, and then I'll get off. Do you remember as we had that wonderful dinner table conversation, and you talked for a long time, and then you asked me, which I so enjoyed, and hearing your story, and then you asked me to tell you my story, and I told you one that kind of no one knew what to make of it.
Well, you told me that you were almost had like a national, I don't know if I'd say marshal's license, but you had some national type of security or law enforcement. I've actually forgotten what you told me about. I was impressed by it. It's like you were deputized across the country.
I just sent you a story that I just sent you the story of it. And if you want some good bedtime reading, start reading that story, and call me back if you want to chat about it.
Well, what was it you told me that you had? I know you told me about Hillary Clinton and you were working for the government when you gave her the money or something.
The Senate Judiciary Committee in 2006, with whom I've been working for about a year, the Senate, the chairman called me in with 7 other senators and told me, we think you're right. There's some kind of systemic corruption taking over the United States government, and we can't stop it. It's our job to stop it. The Senate Judiciary Committee has the highest. It's our responsibility to investigate corruption, which in a sense makes us the final guarantor of the Constitution.
And our ability to investigate corruption transcends every other power within government. If we want to investigate the CIA or we want to investigate the people who make nuclear weapons, we get to, and they don't get to stop us. Patrick, we think that you're right. Some kind of systemic corruption is taking over the United States. We can't stop it, but you're going to stop it for us. We are deputizing you with this letter that's going to sit for the rest of your life in a safe. And the letter is from the Senate Judiciary Committee in 2006. And the first paragraph says that there's some kind of systemic corruption infiltrating and taking over the federal institutions of our national government. And the second paragraph says the Senate Judiciary Committee requests that Patrick Byrne be shown extraordinary latitude under the law to investigate the federal government. And
is this the story? This is the story you said you sent to me. You want me to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read
it's
it.
In that story.
I'll read it. Well, listen, I appreciate you. I appreciate you calling me. I appreciate your candor and talking with me. I'm not the arbiter. I'm not the.
I'm not looking for being arbiter.
Well, I'm not the person. I'm not the person that's going to resolve what's going on. It's not my business. It was my business, I thought, to tell the truth about what I knew because of what was being done with me with Kyle Rittenhouse. And it's hard for me to believe that Mike Flynn did not know from Joe about the fact that I had done what I signed a personal guarantee in November on a $150,000 note because I wanted that boy to get out as quickly as possible. And I think Mike knew that. I think Joe knew it. And I don't understand why he stood mute and let them say that I delayed to grift. I didn't take a dime from Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm not a thief. I've never done anything like that in my life. The evidence is conclusive that it didn't happen here. I put all the documentation out publicly. And yet these Mockingbird media people continue to tell the lie. Now, I don't know what's going on with David Hancock. I personally think he's a CIA or deep state operative. I believe that because he's been attacking me for over a year and a half. And there's no reason for him to be obsessed with me unless he's paid to do it. So I wanted it stopped, and I still want it stopped. But if I can't get it done by telling people they've got to back off, then I'll start filing lawsuits. I don't have time to do it, but I will if I have to. So that's why I put that stuff out there today. And I didn't mean to step on any toes, but I only told the truth.
Well, it was an odd coincidence because I was calling you today to sort of wish you well and ask you, would you mind I'm a visitor in Tomatley if I'm driving through South Carolina.
Well, if you're ever down this way, I certainly want you to stop by and see me. Tomatley is open to visitors. I like to have people come by and see how beautiful it is. We've done a lot with it in the past year. You'll be impressed. I know you're only here a short day, but my property managers and assistant managers have done a wonderful job with the property, and I'm proud of it. God blessed me with being steward of a very unique piece of property. So stay in touch with me. I
stayed there 2 nights and I loved it. And I wanted to come back many times. And I will go on and find whatever your statement was, and I will repost it and say, look, I met the gentleman for about 48 hours. And I have to tell you, man, when I saw Kyle say that the other night, it didn't occur to me for a second he was telling the truth. Never occurred to me.
I'd like to see somebody say that.
It didn't. I don't think he knows he's lying. I think he's been manipulated by somebody. And he would even take the time. The fact that he broke the interview to do that and make that point, someone told him to do that.
Yeah. Well, somebody ought to tell that.
I think I will.
All right, Patrick.
Later,
God bless you. All right. Bye-bye.
Have people on both sides, the people on Antifa, and they control and fund the people in the Proud Boys.
Both sides are being pitted against each other in order to cause chaos.
Yes.
Why do they want to do that?
Well, if you want to increase funding and support or for the Proud Boys, do this. If you want to increase and radicalize and get more people brought into Antifa, you get these things going.
Chose that name and to do that to
people. And 3 EDC.
But explain that to people, because I know that General Jones was involved consulting Trump early on. I know he has some involvement with Stone, goes around and works with all these groups. But spell it out. What are you getting at?
3 EDC.
Because I can tell you, nobody's calling me up from the CIA or General Jones and they're never telling me what to do. I mean, I'm literally doing whatever I want.
And that's not how it would work. What we would do is we would use an organization like InfoWars using you as an asset, whether you know about it or not, is completely irrelevant. If you have the clients that you have, your demographics fit a very a target-rich environment for IIA, right? So naturally, and just to prove
no, but I understand the chicken or the egg. I chose that name, and to do that, to engage that.
Yes, but look
at. It's not if you're going square dancing, you dress up in a square dancing outfit. I mean, if you want to play golf, you get your golf clubs.
Oh, trust me.
I mean, I went to the golf course.
Trust me.
I'm trying to affect this with truth instead of sneaking around.
No. I've come to the conclusion that you're like, ironically enough, you're like the one person in media that I could trust. That's why when she was arrested, when Gavin was arrested, they didn't tell me to come here. I came here on my own.
His business, his family, and the Delta Force. Basically, let's just say it, the enemy already knows all this. Let me just say this: everybody listening knows I'm telling the truth. Special Operations Command in Florida, the Delta Force, Army, Black Ops. It's Army's the oldest thing in America. It's before the Constitution, anything. They said, sir, you need to go with Alex Jones. You need to rally the troops, and then they briefed him. They showed him the documents, and they said, we need you to run. And this was a year before he came on with me, and he went to Scotland for 6 months and didn't want to do it. He knew they just come after him, his businesses, his family, and the Delta Force basically asked Trump. Delta Force, founded by General Boykin and Schumacher and people like Dr. C. Pachenik of Psychological Operations of the CIA. They basically delivered the message to Trump with all the dossiers and all the proof of what was happening. And he just said, you're highly recommended. All I can say is we're going to be talking a lot more because he was being briefed by top generals. I'm not going to say the name on what we're doing. And it's not that I'm even special. I'm willing to say this. I'm willing to do this. I wasn't directed by anybody. I was just aware of the operations. I was.
To cause chaos.
Yes.
Why did they want to do that?
They have people on both sides. The people on Antifa, and they control and fund the people in the Proud Boys.
Both sides are being pitted against each other in order to cause chaos.
Yes.
Why did they want to do that?
Well, if you want to increase funding and support or for the Proud Boys, do this. If you want to increase and radicalize and get more people brought into Antifa, you get these things going.
By the way, the podcast or anyway, there's this woman out there with this big podcast that is in today. Mike is right. Their imposition of tyranny is coming through medical tyranny, but we have through an open source lawfare movement. And do you know Tori? By the way, the podcast or anyway, there's this woman out there with this big podcast.
you. I got two quick speakers. We're so happy after dark last time. Don't let it take the attention away. You guys go over the groups. I'm excited to bring up another amazing speaker. I got a couple of people we gotta hurry because the sun's coming down. Millie, Bob, let's come up here, brother. He's not taking the people who put this together. He's not taking my stage. It's not happening. We have one last speaker guys got here, Millie Weaver.
But I was really blindsided with the fact that Secret Service told us go meet the president there, but then there was no Secret Service or extra military there. And I know Trump requested a week before 10,000 National Guard and was denied because I guess that comes down to the District of Columbia. I know the general could probably speak to that, but I mean, they tried to really set us up. And I'm not saying the Secret Service themselves did it, but somebody told them to come get me out of the crowd to lead it. And thank God a lot of the crowd had already left, so they were unable to blame it on me. If I'd have got there right at the start, they could have set me and others up easily. Why don't
validated and
Whoever's involved with this, which if POTUS hasn't got that message yet, that's going to be a big problem. I've been trying to get people to understand it's the Republicans that are playing these freaking games for profit, and Trump had to be damned. And I knew it was going to cause problems for Trump, so I was trying to tell people. Freaking Cernovich and those dumbasses.
and we're only really here because thus far you've been right. And thus far the information that we've had for months now has been validated, and the information that we've had even with Sunrise Exposed and the Zoom chats that the leftists had, I mean, all that stuff, it just didn't get the attention it needed to have gotten. It was completely stomped out by the mainstream media, and where you wouldn't have expected it to be from people on the right.
Well, what did that do?
And the
It forced them to
conservative
expose themselves.
Right.
Now, when this happened, we can show me, calling out freaking Akbar in line right up to the last day. Shadowgate 2 called them out, called all these people out.
Yeah.
And, there probably were people that were working with them on this. I don't know what their intentions were. I don't care.
People need to realize that, infiltration has been a major issue, and it goes even farther than infiltration. It's like what Patrick's been talking about, IAA assets, and there's a difference between even a knowing asset, right, and an unknowing asset. So some people might not even realize that they're playing into the narrative and that they're partaking in that, but then
98%. How's that?
Yeah, and then you do have those who are knowing assets that are playing into it and almost like provoking people to go in the direction of that narrative, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's at 2% at the very top. You got to keep this stuff highly compartmentalized. And Akbars are a dime a dozen.
Rudy Giuliani recently made some interesting statements on Steve Bannon's War Room about Trump's
a U.S. patriotic group. It's not like I'm outing a sanctioned U.S. government operation. What I'm talking about here is the commercial use of it, because we took the work that we did. General Jones kept his company, Dynology, kept the intellectual property rights for that taxpayer appropriated DoD weapon we built in Iraq, the ShadowNet, which that wasn't its classified name. That was the name that Jones trademarked it under, and then sold it commercially in the U.S. for the purpose of influencing elections.
Right. Now,
does anybody have a problem with that?
Yeah, that's what the whistleblower supposed.
It's not like 2009, about a month after Jones took office as Obama's national security advisor, his company, Dynology, trademarked the name CKMS, Congressional Knowledge Management Software. They trademarked that a month after he took office. A couple months after he leaves Obama's administration, they get the contract. Dynology gets a contract for CKMS, the Congressional Knowledge Management Software. 2009 service, right? So they controlled all of the files, the texts, the profiles, the home addresses, everything for everyone in Congress. Service. You've got Dynology that has the ability to have that has all the access to CKMS. You've got Dynology with the ShadowNet that has the ability to disseminate this information without having any attribution to it. Which is what
you're saying. ShadowNet's also an anonymizer, anonymizer where you can do propagation of whatever messaging.
It's used. Its main purpose is dissemination using anonymity. Now you could do it overtly or covertly. It's a project management tool for fake news.
Yeah.
You've got Dynology that has the ability to have.
Well, I can tell you that the question from you asked me to ask about who's got to run for president. Just handed the microphone. Why don't we do that? Well, I can tell you that the if I know elements in the Republican Party who are already talking about if Trump doesn't run, it's a draft Flynn movement. There's a draft Flynn movement latent in the Republican Party, just waiting for Donald Trump to make his decision. And I think that we could not find a better president.
I'm not even a bigger bullet on my forehead. Okay, there's already one on my back.
But I was really blindsided with the fact that Secret Service told us go meet the president there, but then there was no Secret Service or extra military there. And I know Trump requested a week before 10,000 National Guard and was denied, because I guess that comes down to the District of Columbia. The general could probably speak to that, but I mean, they tried to really set us up. And I'm not saying the Secret Service themselves did it, but somebody told them to come get me out of the crowd to lead it. And thank God a lot of the crowd had already left, so they were unable to blame it on me. If I'd have got there right at the start, they could have set me and others up.
Easily. Why don't we?
I think that's what the game plan was. I truly think that was the game plan. It makes no sense to me. They knew there was probably 1 million people in Washington that day. We were all there. It made no sense to me that that Capitol building was not already surrounded by National Guard or extra marshals or whoever it was. They knew there were going to be that many people, and they probably had some intel that some of those people were going to be unruly. Or they planted those people.
I mean, we know this. We know that. There's a lot of video evidence, and if they ever.
big investigation, but for some reason, well, on the January 6th thing, I heard Mike close off saying, why don't they send my subpoena to Pat Byrne? I think he's drawing attention to an odd phenomenon, which is since the middle of December, January 6th wasn't my idea, but I was out there on the radio since mid-December encouraging people to come for January 4th through January 6th peaceably rally. Peace, I emphasize peace, I wrote about it, but I did in all these interviews for a month. And yet, no one's asked to talk to me. And I've taken out a full-page ad, actually, about, hey, Congress, I asked for this, why don't you talk to me? They're mounting this whole big investigation, but for some reason, Alex, they're leaving, they won't, I took out this the Washington Post turned down the ad, so I put it up on the internet, and the Examiner let me take out a front-page ad pointing to it, and it's saying to Congress, hey, if you want to talk to if you want to get to the bottom of January 6th, come ask me. Sometimes remember the Matrix when the black cats, on the
You got to give me some good news today, Robert, please. I'm getting hammered. Everyone's coming at me left and right. Oh, Juan was wrong. Told you so. And I'm like, man, this is a tough game we're playing here, man.
No, I do think April is an epic month. I don't have any direct access. And I told Juan, me and 6 other guys were going to slash every tire in his $1 million car collection if this stuff didn't come to pass.
Are we going to see the EBS happen? Is the EBS a reality?
The near-death experience for America. It's a near-death experience to most people. They will believe, just like your questions indicate, that we're about to go down for the count. It's the end. It's over. We go to hell for the rest of eternity. The globalists win. The devil wins. It's all over for us. That's near-death experience. All the way into hell. The silvery cord is cut, and you're trapped in hell for the rest of forever. It's not patty cakes.
There's no easy way out of this, guys. There's no easy way out of this. In other words, what he's saying is this is a near-death experience. It's going to feel like it's over, like it does already. It's going to get much worse.
Who is Juan O'Savin then?
Juan O'Savin is given intel by the Octagon Group. It has to be a white hat.
Okay. Okay.
You have to understand, 107, Street Fighter, all of them, they all come out of nowhere. Think about this, folks. They all come out of nowhere and got real popular real fast. Nobody does that without the okay from the elites.
So the white hats are going after these people because these people are not white hats themselves. In other words, these truthers who are actually wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, very clear.
Right.
video, then I am officially incarcerated. I'm actually behind there, right there, in federal prison. So if you're watching this, I'm in jail, but I'm going to give one last final message. Now, first of all, I can't express the gratitude and the appreciation and thanks from my heart for all the support in this really 5 years of political persecution that I've gone through. So from all my heart, thank you for your continued support, and I promise I'm never going to give up telling the truth. I'm never going to give up fighting for you. I'm going to say this. I'm going to be there for 60 days. And in those 60 days, I'm going to find a way to better myself. I'm going to find a way to come out stronger. I'm going to come out wiser. I'm going to come out bolder. I'm going to come out more focused. So for 60 days while I'm in there, I'm going to try to improve myself and become a better person. And so I offer you this challenge. For the 60 days that I'm away, and the next time that you see my face and hear my voice, I challenge you to become a better person. Use this 60 days while I'm away to improve yourself. If I can improve myself in there, then you can certainly improve yourself out here. My final message to you, Godspeed, my loving audience.
I'm sure everyone can figure out who I'm speaking to. I have been in and around government a long time. I was around Fort Bragg before you got there. I was involved with JSOC before, during, and a little bit after your first meltdown. I was already associated with DIA and was there when you had your big meltdown. You didn't even last a year. Of course, they let you stay for a few more months while your replacement was vetted so you could save a little face. That's when you really turned against the country. And then a man gave you a second chance. And you betrayed him. You betrayed his trust. Of course, that's nothing for a man who's already betrayed his country. Your betrayal goes way back. I go way, way back too. You yourself and other family members have called me a brother, called me family, tried to recruit me, as you have recruited so many others in the past. See, I go way back before you even thought of the coup attempt and the January 6th plans. We all know Miss Babbitt, Ashley Babbitt. See, I go way back before that, back when her name wasn't Babbitt. Anybody researching Ashley Babbitt usually stops at California. Miss Babbitt used to live in Maryland, except her name wasn't Babbitt then. I go way back before that even. You see, I was the one on the court records, the sealed national security transcripts, that broke up the so-called terrorist ring that was going to attack Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plant in Maryland, killing untold thousands of people. I got credit for it. People came out and said Mohammed el-Shinawi was a lone wolf, acted by himself, material support of ISIS. No one would listen to his team. They didn't want to hear it, even though the FBI interviewed a couple of them. They didn't do anything. His one team member ended up killing a bunch of people in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The others provided plans for drones and bombs overseas that killed our own troops and some of our allies. This was years ago, 2015. Years before the January 6th. The reason I bring it up is because Ashley Babbitt and her first husband and her boyfriend, who became her second husband, worked at Calvert Cliffs. Now, one of them was part of that team providing inside information. It wasn't a terrorist attack. It was a giant false flag with a specific intent designed to kill thousands of people. One that I broke up. Got credit for it. But they called it a terrorist thing and shut me up. So I go way, way back before you even thought January 6th. You changed the way things were done in JSOC. You thought you could do it again in the DIA. All along, you thought you knew better than everyone else, even those above you. So, you decided to continue. And using a combination of twisted and manipulated facts and intelligence, and even a little racism against the first black president and against Muslims, outright hatred against Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State at the time, and you twisted all that up under some warped banner and called it patriotism. You recruited a lot of people. You recruited senior officers, other officers, civilians, and they followed you. You got to the DIA, you tried again, but it didn't work. They called on quick. You didn't make it very long. And then you were given a second chance. Well, too many things were in motion at that time. President Obama, that you hated so much, Hillary Clinton, they were out of the picture. Things were already going. So you decided to use it for your own benefit. You retired by then. Might as well use what you built. Problem is, you used it against the country. You wanted to take control. Just like you and your countless minions have been doing lately. Your press arm came out just weeks ago and announced your intention to run for president. That didn't go over too well, did it? No. Now, nobody mentions it anymore. You hope everybody forgets. And to cover it up, because you know what rolls downhill, you're trying to come back around and support certain things about President Trump's doing. Try to seem patriotic again when you're the farthest thing from it. Your crimes are known from start to finish. Eventually it will come out. There are people who did nothing but look up to you continuously, and you used it, you abused it, and you trapped people with their own patriotism, their own trust. Used your position, used everything around you. They are complaining now. Many of the people who were smaller have gone silent just to see where the wind blows, hoping they don't go to prison for your actions of what you started. But they're involved in January 6th where a person was killed, set up to die so you could control the situation. You have others, professionals, online, offline, reporters, things like that, who were involved, who covered, who spread the story, who supported you. And they're mad now. They're coming out. Just like the officers before. Because those officers and the people in the intelligence community knew what you were doing, tried to stop you then. And in 2016, when Obama and Hillary and all the rest of them that you hated so much were no longer in power, and you started using everything against you, they started speaking out in a specific way against you to foil your plans. This is all out there. It's all there. Now I'll tell people some things they don't know. Everybody's heard it. Russian collusion. Yes, it happened. Was there a link on a server to a bank in Russia, Alpha Bank? Yes. In case anybody missed it, yes, there was. But President Trump had nothing to do with it. President Trump had absolutely no knowledge of it. But did it exist? Yes. Because you and Lightning Rod and your little group set it up. It was real. And you documented it and took it to the Democrat side, and they thought, hey, we got something on a candidate. Of course they're going to keep it quiet. They're going to run with it. Little did they know that by the time you'd already given it to them, you'd already taken it down, shut it down, erased all the tracks. So they took the information and said, this is golden. Take it to the FBI. You think it's that easy to convince them? They ran it through their system. It was real. They verified it. They didn't know it had already been gone. Of course it was real. You set it up. It was real. And they ran with it, starting Russian collusion. Now your little partner, Lightning Rod, when controlling the whole Russian investigation, kept you out of it. He's no longer around. Starting way back when. Hammer, Pegasus, everything, spying on everyone, spying on candidates, spying on judges, spying on reporters, all a part of it. I spoke out about you and your connection to Lightning Rod in 2015 and was stomped for it because you couldn't even be questioned then, but everybody knows what you're like now. Period. The reason I'm talking about it now is because your sycophants are continuing to attack people, continuing to attack good people, and to dilute what's going on. You throw a little bit of truth out there and it confuses everyone. You're continuing to attack people, and it's got to stop. There's an election coming, and we need to get this country back on track. Period. Everybody sees how bad it is. You don't care. You're keeping it going for your own personal gain. There are too many good people out there who don't quite know what's going on because you and your group are spreading disinformation, what you've done all along. Wanted to run for president, that didn't work. Now you switched tactics. Haven't mentioned that in a while, have you? No. The attacks and everything have to stop. So I am calling you out right now. No more hiding behind your little minions, your press arm, nothing. I am calling you out into the dusty street right now, you and I. We can meet at a location and be deposed under oath. I will ask you questions. You will ask me questions. I give you my word. I will not take the fifth across the board. This has to stop. I will do this for the good of the people and for the good of my country. Let's see if you'll show up. Or are you going to continue to have your minions attack me and others and everyone else? Once this comes out, if we show over his deposition, let's do it. I don't care if it takes days. I've got the questions. I've got the witnesses. All those people you suckered in, using their own patriotism and loyalty against them, against the country, they're going to come out of the woodwork. All the people that are facing charges, that committed crimes under your orders, under your guidance, they're not going to back you up. And once the Democrat side finds out that they were actually right, that the information they were running with and they were promoting and everything like that actually existed, and it's because of you and Lightning Rod, The media ran with that story forever? Okay, you think all those people were stupid? No. They looked at the facts and said, there's something there. Is there a penalty for producing false documents to the FBI? Is there a penalty for producing false intelligence to Congress and the Senate? Wasting millions upon millions of dollars of the taxpayers' money? Affecting elections because of your lies, your fabrications? I'm betting that there is some penalties beyond the treason and sedition. So let's do that transcript. Let's be deposed. Not pleading the fifth, we're getting it all out there for the benefit of the people and the country. Your move.
Lee had been organizing protests inside Capitol buildings in other states. It was apparent that he was planning to do a siege on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Using other state capitals for practice dry runs.
We're all actors, but I want to direct and act.
He says he's a Trump supporter, right?
Trump, would you shut up? Would you shut up? Rhetorically, Trump was retarded. Trump was just annoying.
Well, that's exactly how you would do it. Think about it.
Stop the Steal is not just a political movement. It's not even a Trump movement. It's not a Trump movement.
You become the face of your enemy so that when the media demonizes you, they're actually demonizing your enemy.
I'm done with this president. I'm going to go public supporting impeachment. I have no choice. He has to go. He has to go. Run again. You'll get your fucking brains beat in.
No, I think it's really bad for the movement. This hurts. It doesn't help. I'm not sure what they thought they were going to achieve.
Roger as well and suggested you may run for president. Is that
No, don't worry about that. One day at a time. One day at a time. Love you, man. Thank you, General.
You, where you don't want to go into politics, would you consider the vice presidential nod?
Hey, Stu, let's get one thing straight here with Trump. Trump's got to make a decision about what does he believe he must do.
Kind of try to get in their mind. You have to understand how they eat, how they walk, how they talk, what they like, what pushes their buttons, what drives them nuts, what upsets them, what makes them happy. And then you use that to your advantage to push whatever ideology or product or direction you want them to go. So if I want to blackmail you and put you under my thumb, not only will I know everything, but I will know your deepest, darkest fears. I will know people I can get in contact to find out more about you. Maybe you had like an old hockey injury. So if I wanted to attack you, I'd know where to hit you.
I believe Donald Trump knows everything. Michael Flynn was tied to NSO between Obama and when he came into the Trump administration. NSO produced Pegasus, a surveillance software for phones. I noted that the quote-unquote Biden person, whoever it is, imposed a restriction on any American business doing business with NSO. I think Donald Trump knows.
You understand enough about someone and you can hack their shadow, right? You can use their fears. You can use their anxieties.
So the answer is yes. I could be wrong. I pray that I'm right. But I think that's why people don't understand some of the things that President Trump does. They look at it and go, why would he endorse that person? Trust him that he has a reason. If I'm right, and I believe I am, that he's 20 steps ahead of everybody, he knows where he's going. He has not left. Why did Michael Flynn say Trump gave up on us? No, he did not. He's still fighting. Why did Mike Flynn and Sidney Powell and Patrick Byrne try to get President Trump in December to sign martial law publicly? Because if they had done that, and if he had done that, the country would have gone into a civil war. Because even half of the people that voted for Trump had been brainwashed to believe that he lost and that he was going to try to coup the country with the military. They tried to set him up. He didn't bite. So if I were Mike Flynn, I wouldn't sleep well at night.